Good morning.
Good morning. Am I the only one here?
No.
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
Will. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, good morning.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, Will. Oh, was that a picture of you?
Yeah.
I changed clothes real fast.
I was wondering why you weren't moving. Hey, Kevin. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Hey, Derek, you are welcome to join us, but I made a mistake on the calendar
Okay.
information that I sent out.
All right.
And we are starting with you guys tomorrow. So I'll get a clarifying message out to y'all after class.
All right.
So
Thank you.
my apologies for that.
All
I
right.
didn't understand how it was going out to you guys.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Hey, Leslie, I know you're under the weather,
No.
but I'm glad you've joined us. Hey, Jana.
Hello.
I decided to spare y'all on how bad I look.
Well, I'm sorry you feel bad.
Oh, it just hit me. I took care of a grandbaby that wasn't feeling super this weekend, and we think we're all immune.
I understand that. Well, welcome everyone. Hi, Tim. Good to see you.
Thank you, Christine. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Well, no AHA slides today. So I'm going to be asking you guys questions. You can give me feedback in the chat if you're more comfortable with that. We are diving in on the decision step. It's the third qualifying step in the Sandler methodology. And it's after the decision step that we move forward to either present, talk about pricing, move forward to close business. And when you look at your close ratio, and if you're thinking, I want it to be higher, or I want to be bringing that business across the finish line, the first place we look to increase that is back at the decision step. But before we get rolling, I want to ask you about victories. Looks like I may have spelled it wrong. We got to celebrate the victories, large and small. Impending events, what do you have coming up where you're using your Sandler skills, or any problems that you're applying what you're learning to solve?
I'll go first, Christine. And two quick examples. One is for a sale, and one is for we were constantly trying to renew and upsell people, if
Yes.
you will. So sometimes you're, overcoming obstacles because they've been a customer for 60 months and there's some scorched earth.
Right.
But just, typical comment, your competitor's cheaper, that's probably the one we've really honed in on. So we've just done a better job with those type of things, asking people to put it in their own words to explain why they think the competitor's cheaper. And what we have found almost 10 times out of 10, that's really not even the issue. Nobody's even vetted us out and because it's not true, you know what I mean, for one.
Right.
And what you usually found is, well, no, I'm fine with that. The real problem is the firewall doesn't work. And so we're really getting to the root cause of what the hesitation is. So I think just putting it in their own words and asking the right questions. And that's helped us both on the renewal front and the sales front. So I won't take up too much time, but same situation on the sales. It's really helping us, instead of us telling them what's wrong, let them put it in their words. So we as a group are really honing in on those two things, and it's really helped us.
Yeah, so drawing them out with questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic.
Go ahead, Josh. Hold on. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, do I need to let Josh in? Any other victories, large or small? Kevin, Patrick, Will, just curious if you guys have anything to share.
I'll go.
Awesome, thanks.
Yes, I was awarded 2 contracts this month, which puts me at 2 of 4, so around 50%. But I think the biggest thing for me was the upfront contract. Not quick to go into fix it mode and just ask better questions. And I think it worked out for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, you may be able to kind of think back on some of those wins you've had lately as we're practicing later today. I appreciate you sharing that. I've got a question for you guys. You may want to take a pen or a pencil and write down these instructions because I'm going to pop you into 2 breakout rooms to talk about it for about 3 minutes. Now, here's the proposal for you. I'll bet each of you $1. So $1 that if you give me $10, then you'll get $100 from me in return. So my question is, should you take me up on that offer? I'll bet each of you $1 that if you all give me 10, you'll get 100 from me in return. Oh, here's Jana. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes in a breakout room. And when you come back, I'd like to hear your answer. Are you going to take me up? Are you going to take me up on that offer? So any questions before I put you guys into breakout rooms?
Can you write that down in the chat?
Yes, I will definitely do that, Will. Thank you for asking.
Well, no, I see it. I'm sorry. You got it on the screen. I'll take a screenshot of it.
Okay. Yeah, I can pop it in the instructions for the breakout room. All right, here you guys go. All right, welcome back. You guys all popped in at once.
Mhm.
So 2 groups, Kevin, Tim, Wendy, Patrick, Jana, Leslie, and Will. Are you guys going to take me up on my offer?
You speak for us, Wendy, go.
My grandmama would spank me. I don't gamble.
All right.
Not a good thing to do.
All right. So team number 1, the decision is no. Team number 2,
No.
what's your decision?
The answer is no.
How did you come to that conclusion? Each group. Just describe it briefly.
Well, that's a losing gamble. I mean, that's a loss right there. There's no way to win anything out of that.
How did you determine that, Wendy?
Well, you have to put up $1 up front. You're going to bet $1. Then I have to give you $10. You're not giving me $100, just handing me 100. I'm going to lose that bet. So I'm out $11 no matter what.
Okay.
Actually, about $9 because she'd have to give you the $1 for losing the bet.
True. That's true. That's true. Math is hard.
Yeah. So Will, how did you guys make the decision? What'd you consider?
So we use the expected value function,
Okay.
which is the payout multiplied times the probability of receiving the payout. And so we considered the probability that you were going to give us the $100 within a reasonable time frame
Mhm.
was extremely low, and the probability. So either you're going to give us $100 in like 50 years from now, in which case we would have been better off keeping the $10 and putting it into the stock market. It would be worth more than 100, or you weren't going to give it to us all and we were going to lose the $9. So in either case, you didn't give us any reason to think like, if you are a grandmother or something along those lines, maybe we take the bet, but you gave us absolutely no reason whatsoever to believe that you were going to fork out $700 here anytime soon to the entire group of us that took you up on it.
So for everyone else, other than Will and Wendy who just shared, the decision was the same, right? But were the 2 processes to get to that conclusion different?
They weren't, because really to expound, I mean, Will used the probability theory, and we actually, to expound what we talked about, we did the same thing. We even talked about Las
you did,
Vegas.
Tim. Sure you did.
Yeah,
Yeah, now
yeah.
you're saying it.
Yeah, no.
We just don't know
this
those
exact-
big words.
Yeah. Yeah, we said that Las Vegas was built on people losing, not winning. So the probability of us winning was so low, and we didn't have enough facts. So it was about probability of winning is why we didn't do it. I mean, she was joking. But, so we actually came to the same conclusion the same way. Maybe used a different formula. We use logic. They use math.
Now, maybe used a different formula.
Yeah.
So when you're working with your prospects, can they come to the same conclusion, but for their own different reasons? Can they have different processes? Do you know what all of those reasons, decisions, and processes are before you move forward with them? That's
They
what I'm
don't
talking
even
about,
know.
uncovering
They
today.
don't even know.
They don't know.
The prospect doesn't know.
True. Does your prospect, and we'll talk about this more, especially when we get to the timeline process. Does your prospect often have a default way of making decisions? Does your prospect have a decision-making process that looks out for their best interest to make the best business decision? Is the answer sometimes yes, sometimes no?
Can you restate the question?
When you're meeting with a prospect, do they always know how to execute the best decision-making process to make the best decision? And a simple way to ask that question, have you ever seen a company or a government entity put out a bid And the bid wasn't even designed to really solve their problem. That's what I'm, yeah. Yep. So it can
As
happen by
always.
design in a bid process. It can happen by default. But what happens to us as professional salespeople if we don't understand either their default position to help them get to the best decision-making process? And
Christine, I'm
remember,
not sure if this is what you're talking about, but I know it's something that has come up in conversation many times over the years, where you see a prospect, and at least in our mind, making a very poor decision.
yes,
And I think probably the times it's the most frustrating is when they just simply don't make a decision at all.
exactly.
And you're like, you need to do something. Like, even if you choose a competitor,
Exactly.
like, you need to do something because you need to get your problem solved.
Exactly.
But they just kind of like, paralyzed there, and it's kind of concerning to watch from the outside.
Exactly. Now, in a little bit later in class, you guys are going to be working on this decision process tool 7.2. Note that right here in the second section, your upfront contract is a part of that. So we're going to come back to that in a minute, but I've got a quick video to share with you. It's one of these Michael Jordan videos. He's got a lot of them out there. And the question I want you to answer is, what is he specifically talking about?
It's not about the shoes.
Okay, you guys can't see that, can you? Could you see the video?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
It's about knowing where you're going, not forgetting where you started. It's about having the courage to fail, not breaking when you're broken, taking everything you've been given and making something better. It's about work before glory. And what's inside of you is doing what they say you can't. It's not about the shoes. It's about what you do in them. It's about being who you were born to be.
So what's he talking about there?
What about the shoes?
Is he good because of the shoes? Does he win because of the shoes?
Nope.
Is it easy to win?
Matter of fact, he won the national championship winning shot in Converse at University of North Carolina. Just a quick FYI, when he was a freshman. So it ain't the shoes.
That was long before the shoes, right?
Yeah, just letting y'all know, when he was 18 years old, freshman year, he was in Converse Cons, what they were called, when he hit that winning shot. So it's not the shoes. Meaningless trivia.
Is it easy to draw our prospects out in the decision step? When we've had an effective pain conversation and we realize they have budget, is it easy to make sure we don't get stuck in hopium, that we think this is a slam dunk?
Yeah, to me,
Let me
Christine,
know what you think about this rule. When convictions are strong, decisions are easy. That Sandler rule covers a couple of different things. It covers our own convictions. Are we confident in our upfront contract? Are we confident we can help this prospect make a decision? Are we confident in our technique to do that? Then on the conceptual side of the equation, I have a question for you. And if you'd like to answer it in the chat, you're welcome to. Think of a recent big purchase that you made. How do you make decisions? How do you make decisions? Do you research? Do you look at all the options? Do you take a lot of time? Do you ever find yourself not even wanting to get back to salespeople because there's so many options? Are you decisive? So we're going to work some on the technique side of the decision step today. But I want you to consider, as you continue to learn the Sandler methodology, your own decision-making process can influence what you expect from others. Your own decision-making process can influence what you expect from others. You know, one of the things I like about calling on business owners, that's funny, Will, is business owners are decision makers. They are used to making decisions. When I play in the corporate space, if someone in that larger corporate world reaches out to me, I have to be ready to deal with a whole different type of person. So when convictions are strong, decisions are easy. So think about your own conviction and trust in the process you're building from a technique standpoint, but also consider, how do you make decisions? I love my husband. He's a great guy. He's a high S. And he's a controller at a company here in Birmingham. So he often makes the decisions about the copiers and those leases for office equipment, which can be a pretty big, sale for those kind of salespeople. He can't stand those guys because they come after him like a hawk. So you know what he does? He tells them wishy-washy positive things and he disappears. We got to be aware of how we make our own decisions because it can reflect what comes back to us. And if you want to know the future, bring it to the present. Leslie brought up some great multiple choice questions last week. Remember the Sandler techniques that you are learning, applying the dummy curve, reversing, softening statements and reversing questions. You're applying all of those techniques still in your decision step to uncover the truth. Just let me know. You can put up fingers or you can just say in the chat, how many people do you think influenced your last major purchasing decision? Whether it was for your company, whether it was for your household, how many people? Jana, it looks like you're counting.
I am. Yeah, my last big purchase was my house.
Yes.
So both my parents weighed in, which is helpful. My realtor, I had a couple friends, my job, location.
Right.
So I mean, there were several. I had some say, but yeah.
So more than 2, more than 3?
Oh yeah, probably 5 or 6, I'd say.
Yeah.
People or things. Please, yeah.
For the rest of you, more than 1, more than 2? So I'd like to ask you guys to share a success story from your past. One of the first clients I worked with, and we're talking about them bringing some new people to work with me again. One of my first clients is a business owner that's very hesitant to invest in outside help They just hadn't had good experiences in the past. But it's a business owner I've known for many, many years. When I started the business, just went to share with him about who it might make sense for me to talk to. And he said, I think it might make sense for me to have my son work with you, because his son was in the process of taking the business over. And I thought, oh, there's no way he's going to do this. Because I just, I knew them. And I was so surprised as we moved forward. They were one of my first clients, had a great experience working with them for over a year. And here's what I found out afterwards. I had an influencer in the corner that I wasn't even aware of. It was an owner in the business. And it was the mom in the business. She wanted to make sure her son was equipped for that next step. When have you won a deal? Now, you probably intentionally uncovered that influencer. In this case, I didn't know until afterwards. But when have you won by uncovering an influencer, bringing them in? What has that looked like in your world?
For us, Christine, many times it's after the fact, similar to yours. So
Okay.
we will have serviced, this guy was the CFO at company A. He went to company B and he became an influencer.
Okay.
But the decision maker sometimes reached out to us. Sometimes we cold call them. We'll go through the whole process and close the deal. And we'll find out it was the guy that was originally at company A who kind of put the final stamp on us for us to get the business. That happens fairly often. We don't know it sometimes to a good bit down the road. Because of course we always ask, how'd you hear about us, that type of thing. But sometimes until they make the decision to go with you, they're hesitant to share that hidden influencer.
Yeah.
really
Would you like to know that earlier in the process?
Absolutely, yes. And that's what I was going to say. So I was going to tell you, I don't know what that really means, except we're not uncovering them, but it would be a value to uncover them earlier. So that was going to be my question to you.
Yeah.
I don't know, for whatever it's worth, since I sit in the decision maker seat. It's an interesting, there's probably some sort of curve in terms of if it's maybe could be somewhat major, but not too major of a decision.
Yes.
I'm far more likely to delegate the decision to somebody else.
Yes.
And I would say lower decisions, actually, the influencers matter a whole lot more. The more critical the decision becomes, probably the less influence people, at least inside the company, have on the decision. The larger the decision becomes, the more I begin to rely on people outside of the company, mentors, people who have been there and done that,
Right.
Because now this is, I'm looking for somebody who's got experience in exactly this sort of scenario.
Right.
Whereas if it's something maybe I feel more comfortable with and it's more par for the course, maybe it's a big decision, the influencer might really make the decision. I'm just rubber stamping it.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So what does that mean, for everyone else on this screen, who's calling on people just like Will? What do we want to make sure we uncover in the process? And Tim, do you mind if I run a quick tip by you? I mean, one way that you can at least work to uncover that on the front end?
Sure.
It's with a third party story, because at IT Voice, how many years were you guys Slappy? 40 years or more?
Yeah, 36.
Yes. So, as a long-standing company here in Birmingham, one way you can share a third party story is you can say, if you're talking to a prospect, you can say, look, Mr. Prospect, we've been in business here for generations. We have a lot of happy clients. And oftentimes, we'll find out after we bring a client on, they tell us one of our other really happy customers referred us. Look, by any chance, could you let me know, have you heard good things about us, just so we can make sure and thank them?
Right.
Now, that may not be the smoothest example, or may not be the type of wording you would use, But third-party stories can always be an effective way just to draw someone out when maybe a direct question may not be helpful.
Thank you.
Now, my next question, you may not want to share this, but I'd like to ask you to consider, because I've got two scenarios to share with you. When have you lost with a surprise decision maker or someone who came in and Bigfooted you, just stepped on that deal? I've got two situations to run by you. You know, I met with a probably about a $50 million company. They only had two salespeople, but they sell very, very big stuff. They were an introduction. You know, they were told, you know, based on the problems you have, you need to talk with Sandler. You need to talk with Christine. I met with the sales VP. The CEO wasn't able to be in that meeting, but you know, I asked, I said, you know, even on the front end before we met, who's making this decision? And the sales VP told me, he said, well, you know, we were referred to you by, you know, someone very important to their business. She said, I'm sure, you know, the CEO is going to go with that recommendation, but we need to go over some details. And that's, you know, when I went in and met with them. After, even in my upfront contract where I went over, look, you know, at the end of this, you're going to make a decision, you know, either no, we don't move forward, or yes, we do. You know, her answer was, again, the same thing. Look, we know we need to do this. We've researched our options, you know, just need to go over this with the CEO before we take that next step. That next step, CEO stepped on all of it. Stepped on all of it. The next one was a large commercial services organization. And you know what? I went through an entire kind of process with the prospect there. Then the dude just went dark. Literally made a bunch of commitments to me in the meeting. And when I left the meeting and sent the calendar request, heard nothing from him. The next morning I called him. He said, hey, you caught me in a bad spot. Let me call you back in an hour. Never heard back. You know what happened there? I think he just misrepresented the entire situation. Wasn't telling me the truth. Are there times when prospects don't tell the truth? Yeah. But you know what? Looking back, I didn't test him enough with my questions. So when have you lost with a surprise decision maker? You comfortable sharing any of those? What kind of things have you run into? Now, I know some of you guys work with homeowners where you've got probably two people in that couple. I think everyone else I'm looking at on the screen here may be working with multiple decision makers in a business environment, maybe not. Now, Jana, you may not want me to ask you, but you're not on mute, so
That's okay. Yeah.
what do you run into calling on firms that have multiple ownership? Do they have multiple decision makers? What have you run into?
A lot of the times I will talk to one of the, if it's not like a solo where they're the main person, a lot of times I'll talk to like the marketing person who then has at least one, if not two different people that they need to run it at the flagpole to. And they have a lot of pull, I'd say, but they don't have ultimate like decision-making things. So one phrase that I've like heard, but am not as comfortable using is there anyone that has like ultimate veto power? Something along like those lines. But that's a tough one to ask. And I don't want to like insinuate that person like doesn't have authority to, you know, make a decision. So it's one that I'm still figuring out how to phrase in the best way.
Now, when you say figuring out how to phrase, what's uncomfortable about asking that question?
I don't want to insult their kind of role at the firm, or kind of even if it's very true, kind of say that they don't have the decision-making like authority in this case, when they're, you know, the one kind of vetting. So I don't want to offend them in any way, because I know they're going to be the ones a lot of times relaying that information to the decision maker.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do anything that would step on their toes, if that makes sense. But it's probably all in my head, because that's how I work.
Well, we all have that stuff in our head, Jana. Does anyone else on the screen run into that issue? Maybe worried about offending the decision maker if you just ask them, hey, look, who else is going to be a part of this decision?
Well, I think, Jana, if it makes you feel better, this is my experience. I'm not saying it's correct, but ironically, I think people in this day and time run from responsibility. You're almost relieving them when they can put it on somebody else. Or more specifically, you're too young to know this, but 20 years ago, it was very in vogue for one person, the purchaser, to make the decision, or the controller. There's been a paradigm shift in business where a collaborative effort is very in vogue. So you can almost refer to that sometimes, saying, and I see many companies out there, and I know it's a real collaborative or team effort in making the decision. So who all would be involved with that? Were you guys, do you have the autonomy, or is it more of a team effort like I see more often? And then people, if they can get rid of that responsibility by themselves, they don't want to make a decision to not go with AT&T, and then their internet doesn't work. You know what I mean? People are scared of that. And that's just
I like the way you asked that question.
That does help.
Yeah, Tim, that was a great example.
Yeah.
Tim just illustrated what I was going to share with you. What type of question? Does anyone know what type of question Tim just asked Jana?
Good one.
Yes, a good one. From a technique standpoint, that was a multiple choice question.
And a third party story.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, open-ended questions are good and they have their place, but you don't want to only ask open-ended questions.
Yeah, I love, Tim, I love the way you asked that. And it actually overcomes the one part that I was kind of thinking on this, which is that I think Jana is right to be cautious about how to ask it, because you could be insulting to somebody by inferring us. And I would probably generically profile people. If they look like they're over 40 or 50, I would be far more sensitive, because some of those old school guys, like you ask them a question like, who else is making this decision? Like, well, backgammon, I make all the decisions around here,
Yep.
Whereas I do agree with you, Tim, a lot of it is becoming more of the norm. But there are some people that could be offended by that. So I do like the way you asked it, because it kind of said, hey, this is the way other people are doing it. So I'm not inferring it about you. I'm just asking if you're like them or not. So I thought the way you asked it was great, to not insinuate that for the person who might fit that, but also give them a way out depending on where they're coming from.
Give them a way out. Now, next week, we're spending more time on IR theory, but do you guys remember the concept of okay versus not okay? In the decision-making process, we still want to make sure our prospects are okay. And that's where the multiple choice questions, the third party story that Tim just illustrated, helps take the pressure off from the prospect feeling like you're putting them down, right? Jana, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome to put words in there.
Well, no, let me know if I'm wrong. And then we also move forward, and we're about to work on your decision tool 7.2. I'd like for you to think of a recent sale, or for you, Wendy, a recent conversation where you set up an appointment. You write down the details there at the top. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. You're welcome to turn off your screen if you want to and turn it back on when you come back, or I'm going to set a timer and give us 3 minutes. But look at the second section Explain in detail the prior upfront contract expectations that you have set. Explain in detail the level of acceptance that you have experienced. Rate your own confidence on that upfront contract. Because every paying budget decision, moving forward to doing business together, each step in the Sandler methodology builds on the previous one. Your upfront contract and the strength of your upfront contract, strength meaning clarity and mutual understanding, not strength meaning, like an arm wrestling match where you're overpowering them, but strength meaning clarity and communication and clarity in feedback from your prospect. Because where you set the stage for asking the tough decision questions, tough meaning they can be tough for you, for asking questions that sometimes our prospects don't want to answer or may not know how to answer, we set that up in the upfront contract. So that's why it's here in this tool. Then down below, you have the opportunity to write up the decision makers, including their DISC style, because that can be a big part of how you ask them. There's some conceptual questions for you. So take 3 minutes. Speak up and let me know if you have any questions along the way. Fill out tool 7.2 based on a recent sale. Feel free to speak up if you have questions, or you can send me a chat. Okay, we have a minute left, but it looks like we still have some pencils going. So what do you have? I'm working to get these screens moved around. what do you have in your decision process? I've got on the screen here the example that's filled out. I sent you both a blank tool and one just filled out with an example here. So at the top here, do you guys see the decision process tool 7.2? Okay, fantastic. You've got your customer name, the date of the appointment, the start time. Here in the first section, in this example, part of their upfront contract was they're going to determine the issues and agree on what those issues are and their willingness to find a solution. In the first meeting, the prospect was interested in whether they can be a solution or not and agrees to make that decision, either yes or no. The salesperson here is confident that it could be a fit and got to consider roadblocks. The decision makers have to be okay with change before moving forward. I'm going to put you guys back into breakout groups. And here's what you'll be working on. In the breakout group, the person with the longest experience in Sandler, share your upfront contract. Share your upfront contract from your decision tool. Everyone else in the group, give feedback on how that helps set you up for the decision step. And if there's time, move on to have a second person share. So any questions before I put you in to breakout groups? And I will be hopping in on each group, see if you guys have any questions. Here we go.
Every now and then.
We're not sure who's been here the longest. We can't figure that part out.
We're starting there.
Well, how about this? Would Jana like to go first and then Wendy?
Sure.
Because Wendy, you've been working on your upfront contract, but yours is in a
Yes.
shorter time frame.
Yes.
So condensing it to that, I know is a process you're working on. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with that, Jana?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, did you want me to do it like in a scenario style or right? Oh gosh.
Right now, you can just share what you have on your sheet. What do you cover in your upfront contract and get feedback from the rest of the group on how that sets the stage for your decision step.
I'm so sorry. Someone started calling me and like halfway through that.
No, that's
I'm gonna
okay.
freak out. Okay. So write down, you said what I like write down the sheet for each of the things.
Yes. Share
Oh,
your
perfect.
upfront
Okay.
contract section.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Not the scenario. Yes.
And
Okay.
get feedback from the group on how that sets you up for that decision, conversation that's coming.
Okay. Perfect. So I did mine based on a call I had yesterday. It was a girl. She was a referral from one of our existing clients that I found out kind of on the call.
Calendar. So there was still that possibility that they could ghost us, which they actually kind of semi ghosted us. We did not cover how for them to handle if they felt that need. So we didn't do any of that. I forgot what the technique is called, but you know, the what if of like, okay, well, what if you get to that point and you know you feel like that you don't want to meet, or like we didn't go through any of those type of pieces to help uncover and walk them through that on the front side. So, and I've kind of probably already shared about that customer some, but I could kind of share more about what happened, I guess. But that's kind of so there's the answer to the question. So y'all go ahead and critique me on that.
I think, you know, this is a question to the group. It's something that I heard you say you do, and sometimes I do, but I honestly make it a rule not to. One of the first things you said, you talked and asked about competitors. I rarely mention competitors unless they mention them. I try, because sometimes that's inviting competition or other bids.
And we knew that there was competition.
That's what and I think you're talking about Birmingham Country Club, if I'm not mistaken, because I can tell from your and then that's what I was going to say. And sometimes you come in and you do have to address it. And then sometimes I do address it at the end if I feel like they're hesitating and such. You know, when you talk about part of the upfront contract and the decision-making process, are you going to vet out other companies? If I sense that. But I was just making the comment, I tend not to talk about competitors until I get that sense or that feeling, or they tell me.
Yeah, and in this particular conversation, and I probably should have clarified that, the conversation was all about how are you going to make a decision? We're saying, okay, what's the next steps? How are you going to make a decision? And when we asked that question, their answer was, oh, well, we got to talk to a couple of other companies first. And then that's when we asked, well, who are the other companies you're considering? So
yeah,
then they told us, and we said, well, when are you going to get with them? And kind of got all of those sort of questions and got all that defined, figured out what their timeline was and their process was. And then the upfront contract that we really asked for was, well, hey, after you finish all that, we'll, you know, since we're earlier in this process than they are, will you meet with us last so we can revisit? Because you'll learn.
So what did you take away from that practice, especially if you were an observer?
I'll go for our team.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim.
We were kind of winding it up in the end, and Will was talking about one thing he does is, especially if he's first in the door, establishing his upfront contract, and you run into there's competition.
Yes.
They're vetting you out.
Yes.
Ask for the meeting or the courtesy, or you're trying to get in their own words the commitment. Could you be last in the door?
Yes.
Because they're gonna learn something from your competitors also. That may have come out that you didn't talk about up front. So I thought that was really good for Will to ask, come after you vetted things out, could I be last? However you want to put it. I'm
yes.
not being real smooth, but that's what I learned.
No, that's smooth. David Sandler always said, diffuse the bomb. If there's something hanging out there, go ahead and bring it up. Yeah, exactly. And any feedback from Jana's group on observing that upfront contract process. So Jana, Kevin, Wendy, any thoughts?
Wendy, go ahead.
Not me.
That is Kevin tossing the ball to you, Wendy.
Exactly. He just threw me under the bus. I think everybody's approaches are very different. Everybody's upfront contracts are are different and, but it's the same concept. And, you know, Jana's is very different from mine, but in the end, it's pretty much the same steps. And that's helpful, I guess, to hear other people's approaches as well.
Yeah. Did you take anything away as far as setting up for that decision step? If not, that's okay.
No, Jana's very thorough. She's
Mhm.
very thorough and detailed and organized, and I identify with that. I like that, you know, so I can understand why she would be very successful in getting to the root of pain and the decision maker, because she's very methodical, and that sets you up to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we want to remember what we're setting up with our upfront contract is a decision. No or a yes. It's fine if it's a no. What we don't want are those think it overs or that ghosting. Jana, in my experience, this may not apply to you, but in my experience, the stronger and more direct my upfront contracts are with getting feedback from the prospect, it kind of gives me more courage to bring it up as we're moving through the process and remind them, hey, remember, we talked about this at the beginning.
1,000,000%.
Yeah, and it gives me that anchor. Not everyone operates that way. We're all a little different. So next, when it comes to making a decision, how does your company go about that? And why now? Remember, it's important to get the why behind the when on the decision step. And a very effective technique to do that is to use a timeline. Now, I'm not sure if anyone is jotting this down when it comes to making a decision like this. How do you, or how does your family, go about that, and why now? What are the steps? If you go to the second page in the decision tool, right at the bottom, take just a second and net out the steps in a typical sales process. If you're working with your ideal prospect, what would that look like? Because you're about to go back and role play with your groups. How to use the questions to help your prospect build out a timeline. And the power of this decision timeline is it's something you can net out on the back of a napkin. It's a process you can use as part of an official project plan and everything in between. And don't ever underestimate the power when you have the ability to use a visual, the power of using a visual. So I'm going to take us back to our decision process tool. I'd like you to look at yours. So here at the top, you have the customer name. You have the upfront contract, expectations that you laid out. You rate the acceptance on the side of the prospect. You detail the decision makers. Make sure and you're considering those conceptual barriers that can get in the way for you. Be ready to execute your technique. But here's where we are on page 2. The decision timeline here at the bottom. You've netted out some typical steps that you're going to find with your ideal prospect. I'd like you to take a look at the questions above. These are questions you can draw on in the role play we're about to do. Now, you can build on these questions. You may have multiple choice questions. You may have a third-party story to throw in there, but this is an example to get you started. So you're going to break out groups for 8 minutes to role play the decision step. And you can either take a screenshot or a picture of these instructions or jot them down. The setting we're working with is your world. You're working with a prospect. Pain and budget have already been covered. They are qualified. They have multiple pains you can help them solve. You have uncovered that they are willing and able to bring the budget to the table to work with you. That's money. That's all the other things that it takes to move forward. So those 2 steps are covered. You are on the decision step. For the person that's the salesperson, explain to your role play partner who they are, typically, what their position is, what their typical decision-making process is, whether they make it quickly or whether there's going to be multiple steps. For the person that's the prospect, be an amenable prospect, be open to answering questions, okay? The scene ends when you complete the decision timeline. If there's time, switch roles. So the person with the first name closest to A will be the salesperson first. The person with name closest to Z will be the prospect. Everyone else, observer. Does anyone need to take notes or have a question before I put you back into the breakout groups? Okay. I got to get AHA slides, and we're going to have it back next week. I miss all those little things. Let's see. Hey, Josh, I just assigned you to a room.
You need, if there's anything else that you're curious about, just let me know.
Okay.
And where exactly are we starting? Oh, actually, Christine, perfect. Are we starting at like, hi, nice to meet you, or are we starting after we've already talked about budget and pain? If I missed that part, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're starting. You are assuming the prospect's already qualified for pain and budget.
Oh. Okay.
So you've already covered multiple pains. So in your world, they need leads. They need ones that they can trust. They need a process they can trust. Maybe they've been working with someone and they don't know where the money's going. You've already determined, hey, they're willing and able to bring money to the table to work with you. They've got a budget, and you're comfortable with that. So we're just on the decision step, and that's where it sounds like you were just explaining to Wendy what how to play that role of prospect, right?
Yeah, basically. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Kevin, you're the
Okay.
observer with the compliment sandwich. When you provide feedback, what went well, what you do differently, and something else you liked. Are you okay with that?
Love it. I love a compliment sandwich. Okay, perfect. All right. So Wendy, based on what we talked about so far, I know some of you, the big things that you're hoping to accomplish seem to be just generating more clients, not necessarily leads, because you want the people that are actually going to end up paying you. And, having talked about budget, it seems like we're about on the same page.
Yes.
So I guess I next wanted to hit a little bit on what the timeline might look like and kind of if this were going to be a good fit, what it may.
Kind of wing it here, but other than the price, what is your biggest concern in making this decision?
I think my biggest concern is the unknown. The devil sometimes is better than the devil that you don't. And everything sounds really good that you told me, but there's always that question in the back of my mind of what am I missing?
Gotcha. And yeah, that makes perfect sense. What we do before you sign any contract, obviously we've been talking to Jake, and he's gone through all the technical aspect of what's included in this contract. I'm going to write up almost like a scope of work that describes in layman's terms exactly what we're going to be doing. So I'll put that in front of you. You can go through that. And then if you have any further questions about what is or what isn't included, we can address those at that time.
Gotcha. So we really need to have this in place by the end of the week. So we're going to be able to get that done?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to work on it as soon as we get done with this call. I'm going to have Jake review it, since a big part of this proposal is on the IT side, to make sure that we're in agreement on that front, but you'll definitely have it before lunch today.
Right. Well, I was hoping we would have like the whole solution implemented before the end of the week. Are we still on target for that?
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. So Brian, we already talked about that. So we're looking at 60 to 90 days to.
Hey, do you mind if I jump in here, Josh?
By the end of next month. What did I say? I'm
Okay.
sorry. By the end of next month is what I meant.
Go ahead,
Now,
Christine.
Josh, let me know if I say anything here that hurts your feelings, okay?
Nothing hurts my feelings, Christine.
Let me know what you think about this, and you'll do it much better than me. But let's say you're talking with this prospect. Maybe you're face to face, maybe you're on a Zoom where you can pull up this whiteboard. You literally sketch out a timeline. Now, when do they want this decision? 60 days, 1 month? Which is it, Josh? What did Will say?
Oh, they want to make the decision today.
Okay, well, they want to make the decision today, but we're talking about
Implementation, Josh.
We're talking about
implementation.
when you guys
days.
start getting paid, right? And when it's installed. So if you're looking at, these hash marks might be weeks, they might be days. Was it 60 days? Was it 1 month? What were you guys talking about?
60 to 90 days.
Okay. So if you're looking at 60 to 90 days, I'm just going to write 60 here for brevity's sake, because we only have 2 more minutes. Once you get to this decision-making step, if you're talking to your decision maker, Will, and you say, hey, Will, when do you need this decision made? Remind me, apply the dummy curve, because you want to draw it out of them. And Will says, 60 days. Now you may need to provide the caveat, what, sometimes it's going to be closer to 90. Can we sketch it out so I can let you know what we need to make that happen? Is that okay with you, Will?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
And then Josh, this timeline tool gives you the opportunity to go back to the beginning of, what you need from them today. Like you said, he's willing to make a decision today. And you say, okay, Will, you're ready. It's D-Day today. You're ready to make the decision today. Now, look, hey, help me out. I may be redundant here, but I'm not sure if he told me, look, is there anyone else you need to get them to just say, hey, okay, before you stroke the check, before you do that purchase order, is there anything we should add here regarding anybody else? And you see what he says.
He's making the decision by himself.
Okay, he's making the decision by himself. So the next step is, now I don't know all the technical things of what you need, Josh, but what is the first thing you need to get this 60-day timeline working? And that's where you delineate with the prospect. And this is an advanced tip. If you get the prospect writing themselves, that's incredibly powerful. Because remember, you're still qualifying. You still want to apply the 70-30 rule and keep them talking 70% of the time. So Josh, thank you for letting me use you as an example.
Absolutely.
Great job, Josh.
But we're going to go back and get everybody's feedback. Let's see.
Josh is a game player. He's not much of a practice player. He's much better.
Hey, there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, he's like Allen Iverson. This is practice. Practice? We talking about practice?
Not the game. Not the game.
Yeah, you guys should ask Patrick about practice. He knows a thing or two about that.
I figured he knows about that rant. We talk about.
Okay.
So I'd like to ask your feedback, your experience in that role play.
Jana was, again, very organized and very methodical and easy to talk to. It went very quickly.
It almost went too quick. I thought I was like missing a step.
Okay, what do you think you may have been missing? And Kevin, we're about to ask for your input on that. What do you think Jana may have been missing?
I don't know that I was, but it went easy. I wasn't prepared for that.
Well, are all prospects as awesome as Wendy is?
No one's as great as Wendy is. And that's the problem.
What were your observations, Kevin?
I think she did a good job of action about any other decision makers early in the process, and also potentially uncovering any roadblocks before she went any further. And I think she asked all the right questions and was very good at it.
And any specific question that you might build into your repertoire, build into your talk tracks?
Basically just, is there anybody else involved making decisions other than you? And it was something else that she had added, but I'm sorry I got interrupted. I had a phone call come in.
No,
so I had
that's
to blink
fine.
out for a second.
So Wendy, can I ask you, how did it feel when Jana was asking you those questions?
It felt like a conversation with somebody who was very comfortable, and I didn't feel like a sales pressure thing at all. Just felt like two equal people talking to each other. She's very good at making you feel that equal playing field.
Mm-hmm. So curious from group 2, your takeaways, because we didn't even really get to the point, I guess, of observation.
We did.
For that practice. Okay. What do you think, Will?
So, I really liked your comment about getting them to take the pen.
Yes.
And to kind of echo even what Wendy said, and it kind of dawned on me as she was talking about it. One of the things that we always saw in our business was people who were in operations were sometimes the best salespeople, because the prospect didn't feel like they were selling. They were problem solving. The customer's like, hey, I got this problem.
Yes.
And the operations person doesn't even know pricing or anything else. They're just like, well, here, let's put our heads together and figure out how to solve this problem.
Exactly.
And that's what this process feels like. All right, here, you got a pen, I got a pen. Here's the timeline. Here's your goal where you're trying to get to.
Yes.
All right, let's start backing into this and let's figure out how we're going to reach your goal. And now they're engaged in solving that problem instead of feeling like you're trying to, sell them or push them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Whether it's in your pain step when you're asking questions, whether it's in this decision step, anytime you get your prospect writing, It's another way of drawing them out and psychologically taking ownership.
And I think as any salespeople, understanding the timeline is number one. And then what you become, and Jana's great at this, or some other play roles, she's just educating people. And that's what good salespeople do. Because up front, if I set the timeline, the first time I speak to you, oh, our phone system's broken, we can't take any phone calls. Okay, then I know that's an emergency situation. So from day one, I'm setting the timeline before I learn about anything else, because now I've put urgency to their decision. I can't sell them and then go, by the way, oh, you got to hurry up and do this. It takes me 30 days to install this. So if you set the expectation, the timeline up front, you're setting the stage for the entire process. So depending on what I meet with them and what their pains are, if they need remote management tools, phones, internet, true fiber, immediately I tell them, oh, we can certainly, and fiber's a great choice. It's the most reliable, the most uptime. Those are all the great things to fiber. The bad things to fiber are, it's for sure a minimum of 90 days to build in. So I'm putting urgency to that decision by educating them immediately. I don't have to come back and go, hurry up and sign this. I've already told them day one, before I even understand their pain. If you want to do business with anybody, and I'm using fiber as my anchor, no matter who you use, nobody can magically cure concrete. If we're building a house, concrete takes X amount of time to pour and X amount of time to cure into storage. You can't hurry up and build a house till the concrete's cured. Same principle. So you have to find that and educate them up front, and then you're not reacting the whole sales process. Oh, can you hurry up and sign this? I mean, it's in a month and blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
You know how it goes. So.
Because if we as sales professionals are reacting, are we in control?
Nope.
No.
Never.
Where can you, or how can you build in a timeline process? How many of you are meeting face to face? How many of you are either, on the phone or virtual? Because virtually, and Jana, we did this in the other group. I just pulled up the whiteboard, for us to start talking through a timeline. If you're meeting in person, how can you be ready to sketch out a timeline? I often take, oops, I just knocked something off my desk. I often take, I have this card stock that I like to take on appointments if I'm meeting with someone face to face, in case I need to sketch something out like a timeline. So we can work on it together. Now you're going to come up with your own way to do this, but how could you build that timeline in? Even on the phone. I know, Wendy, you're on the phone, and Josh, I saw you raise your hand. Even when it comes down to setting urgency to set an appointment, how could verbally asking about a timeline help you do that, Josh? And then for you, Wendy, you're managing the opposite. You're managing expectations that we're going to set this appointment. As we are able to, we will work to move you up. And here's what that looks like. Just off the top of your head, I'm curious, how do you think you could be ready for that conversation? Whether it's on a tool like Zoom or Teams, or whether it's in person. And Tim, I'm curious, because I know you have a whole team of people doing this, what your initial thoughts are on how that may work.
Yeah, so, I think our team is a group. So, we certainly sketch out things all the time, especially in person. And even in this crazy COVID world, we sold 34 deals this particular last month.
Congratulations.
I'll look a little closer, and our average is about 33 to 37. I'll look a little closer. Short of any, add-ons, I won't count add-ons, but new sales, I don't know that there's many, if any, I'm sure there's some that we ever close without being in person. And even through this COVID thing, we're talking about, Josh's deal is almost $11,000 a month for 60 months. Those are big decisions. Okay. So, the sketching out is very important, but take it a step further. We don't send our T's and C's, the official legal contract. We send it via e-signature last minute. We do everything on a Word document. So I'm equating that to sketching, okay?
Yes.
And what we're doing, we're speaking very clearly in layman's terms on what we're doing. I'm not sending you a contract that says you're buying a POA T620 and you're buying 13 of them. We're pulling a plenum cable, and people are like, what the heck is all
I know. I was
this?
just like, my eyes are glazing over, Tim.
So we're laying it out in a Word document. We're reviewing that Word document. And as you review what you're doing in layman's terms, you're laying out the timeline. And then us sending the signature document, they never see the T's and C's or the signature document until the day we're closing it. And usually we send it e-sig, and that's been going on for about 18 months now. And they have it for a cumulative of a minute to 3 minutes till they can open it and do all the chicken scratch with their finger. And that's it. Everything else is done.
Yeah.
You're using Sketch. We're integrating sketching in Word documents, just to give you.
And Tim, I think the one area of potential, improvement for us, and in terms of answering Christine's question, in terms of how could we prepare for this, I think on our standard 1-page Word document proposal, instead of us maybe putting in the details, maybe we can take a timeline and put it there and go ahead and label it cut date, signature date, put the 4 or 5, deposit collected, put some of the major steps, whatever, in there. And then when we sit down with the prospect, they've got a copy. We always have a copy for them and a copy for us, right? So, hey, hey, give them a pen. All right. So let's talk about the timeline. Now, remind me again, when do you want to have this in place? All right. So let's write that in. And now they're writing it on their side. We're writing it on our side with them and walking them through that, compared to, I think what we're doing now is more like we've kind of gathered it maybe from them and we're just kind of writing it down, for them. Now, maybe in the next meeting, obviously we don't necessarily have to do it again because it's in their words. But I don't know. Maybe we want to take theirs and take a picture of it and then take that screenshot and put it on the next one. So then when we put it back in front of them, it's in their handwriting instead of our typing.
Yeah, Will, you're going in the right direction with drawing them out. Drawing them out in that conversation. And you guys have a framework to build on. We have about 4 minutes left. I'd like to go around the Brady Bunch screen here. We've got Jana, Kevin, Patrick, Josh, Wendy, and then Tim and Will. I'd like to hear what you'll start doing or stop doing based on what we talked about today.
I'm not sure about that one, but sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, if it helps at all, I can we have this like a timeline graphic that we use as we're talking about the timeline things. If I'm gonna throw it in the chat just in case anyone wants to look at it, but it's basically this visual that I screen share with people and kind of show them what the timeline breakdown looks like. So I don't know if that inspires anything, but one thing that I'm going to make sure that I do is with my upfronts, because we were kind of talking about it at the beginning, is making sure that I get more confirmation through each step of that upfront, specifically on having a decision, because like you said, if I have their acceptance of that, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, you stay accountable. You told me you'd have a decision at some point. So tell me what it is.
Yes, exactly. That's awesome, Jana. Thank you. Kevin.
Practicing.
Practicing. Well, we'll be talking more about that. Yeah. Awesome, Kevin. Patrick.
Yeah, I was going to say, while we were doing one of our breakout sessions, Will was like, in hindsight, it's easy, but I should have set up during the upfront contract, I should have set up the calendar. And I know, Christine, you said numerous times, hey, I don't suppose you have your calendar on you, do you? And so that way you can put a date to finish, to get that decision step started.
Yes. Yeah. So you don't get stuck in that think it over world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Josh, Wendy, and then Tim and Will.
A lot of times when I'm talking to who I think is the decision maker, I'm so excited about the opportunity and trying to help them that sometimes I don't slow down to realize or to ask, who the other influencers are, who the other decision makers are. So I'm going to be adding those questions to my kind of line of questions that kind of keep me on task when I'm speaking with a prospect.
I think I still find myself making assumptions that I'm speaking to the decision maker, or that I've uncovered everything that's influencing the decision maker when a lot of times I haven't. And so I'm going to do better about not making those assumptions.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. Yeah, that mutual mystification can get in the way, can it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Tim, and then Will.
Yeah, for me, I think we do lay out the timelines, and Will alluded to some being more specific. And so I think I'm going to give that more thought, because there's a fine line between being specific and keeping ambiguity. So no different with Wendy. She's not sure when her people can get out there and fix it. I'm relying on third party to deliver things. I got to be careful what I promise versus being too ambiguous. And Jana can't promise you're going to get X amount of customers for this. So we all have some specifics, and we all have some ambiguity. So for me, I hear what Will's saying, and I appreciate it being more clear, but balancing that, don't overcommit. That's my takeaway today.
Yeah, it will. Our closing thoughts.
Well, I have a very random takeaway.
Sure, what's that?
So I'm going to do, and tell me the name of the technique. But when we were talking about the upfront contract, I kind of realized my failure to walk them through well, hey, basically, what if you feel the need to ghost me,
Yes. Bring the future to the present.
Right.
Bring the
But give them
future
like,
to the present.
but walk them through those scenarios of like, well, what if you feel like you've made a decision and it's not us? Are you still going to meet with us? Or, how to ask those questions and get that commitment that, hey, we're going to still meet with you, even if other things might change. Because at the time they agreed to it, it felt very good, like 100% probability it's going to happen. And then all of a sudden we're getting ghosted. And it's like, obviously stuff changed in that 30-day window. So a better job of preparing the prospect, even when you feel great about an upfront contract.
Yes. No, it's 10 o'clock if anyone needs to drop off. But Will, if you have just a second, I can run a few things by you on that.
We have a 10 o'clock, Will.
You guys have a 10 o'clock?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, but
There's
well,
a couple of ways
we
to bring the
can give
future
you
to the
we'll give you
present.
1 minute. Give you 1 minute because it's me and it's an internal meeting. So go ahead.
No, I didn't know.
Well, it's something like this. Hey, look, Mr. Prospect, when we're in the situation where we're asking you who else you're talking with, you get our proposal, and then sometimes we never hear from you again, even though you told us, oh yeah, we're going to give you the last look. Hey, I share this with you because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste ours. Let me know what you're thinking. Hey, are you really going to give us that last look, and are you comfortable with it?
Right. And we did not do anything like that. We just took their word for it. Now, granted, we did make it happen and we did actually close the deal, but it felt like we were this close to losing it.
Sure. Well, you'll end up doing it much better than me, but that was just a quick example.
Oh, I wouldn't put too much confidence in that, but y'all have a great week.
I'll be on for a few more minutes if anyone has any questions. And hey, Jana, I would love to see your
Thank you,
timeline.
everybody.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
I may
Heather.
shoot it over to
Good luck
Steve
today, Josh.
because he may be able to help you with questions to build into your timeline. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I threw it in the chat. Let me know if you're able to see that. If not, I can send it in an email. But yeah, it's just a little, we're all about graphics and infographics here. And so anytime I screen share, I have an arsenal of like 7 I can pull from on timeline, services, pricing, etc. So
okay, fantastic.
I mean, it's short and sweet, but yeah, that'd be wonderful.
I got it. Thanks, Jana.
Awesome. Of course. Thank you.
So what I'll probably
I'll see you
do
next
is I will probably email Steve and copy you. So you see what I send over to him.
Oh, perfect. I think he actually just emailed me. He was telling me the practice session coming up is on budget, I think. What was he saying?
Oh, are you going to be in the
Yeah, the
session
one-
on Monday?
I have them on my calendar, and I'm glad they.
I just asked
back
because I'm facilitating Monday. I'm running the session.
You are? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure I'm on the one Monday for sure. That's the. Let me make sure. I'm gonna say after the 7th. and
Yep.
it's on budget, which I need. Like I know we just did it, but like I need practice with it too.
Yes.
So
Well, I'm going to work on Kevin Truss being there with you and Patrick.
oh cool. Yeah,
So hopefully
absolutely.
you'll see some familiar
Budget.
faces.
Jana attend. I did them a little while back and they were so valuable. And then I just got bogged down with like, oh, Monday morning, got to put out
Oh,
the
I
little
know.
fires.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I'm going to make sure I attend this one. I made a note too. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Well, I'll see you then.
Thanks, Jana.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.